So in this video, I show you guys how to install the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 360. It's pretty different from any other Arctic product to install. Then also afterwards, I turn it on for the first time so you can hear how loud it is. And then you can see how well it performs to see just how good it is, but you will have those results soon. So stick around, check out the video, and more coming soon. So make sure to click like and subscribe and the little bell notification. That way you get notified when I come out with videos just like this. All right, so for an Intel 11.5X or 1151 in my case, we're going to need these guys here. They're the same size on both sides. These little guys here. We're going to need these stickers. They're not to stick all over your face and your case and everything. They have a purpose. We're going to need all of these little tiny screws. Gonna need these washers. Definitely going to need the MX4 paste. We're going to need the backplate. Then both of these retention mechanisms here. We're not going to need it, but it doesn't hurt to have it. The screwdriver, Phillips head. Now, the package also comes with these as well, but we're not going to use them for the 1151 or whatever. The short and stubby ones, they always throw them away. Anyway, we're going to need some, or not need, but it's probably recommended to be using some isopropyl rubbing alcohol to wipe up the residue of the previous thermal paste that your CPU may have had, if it had any, if you're reusing the CPU. Then you're also going to need a case that'll support the Liquid Freezer 2 360. The 360 being 3 120 millimeter fans going either in the front of your case or the top of your case. I'm gonna go ahead and try to put it on the top. Now, it's always best to make sure that the RAM you have, I know this board has it seated kind of in a weird place. This is the EVGA Z390 dark motherboard, but a lot of times what happens is you have very high profile RAM and it's gonna run into the fans down here or the radiator or wherever, and it's gonna stop you. So in those cases, you're going to need to move the liquid cooling unit up to the front. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and try it over here. I should have enough clearance. Maybe I don't, but I should have enough clearance. The other thing is we're also going to need to prepare the motherboard itself along the back. Your case may not have an opening here. This is the Fractal Design S2 Vision RGB case. If it does not have one here, or if you have an EATX case, chances are this portion is going to be slid up towards the front and you may not be able to reach these two holes. This is where these little stickers are going to come into play. You're going to put them right here. That way it doesn't damage your board. I'm going to take this out, the motherboard out, just to make it easier for me to show you guys. Now that we have the motherboard outside of the case, we're just going to go ahead, flip it over. And as I mentioned before, 1, 2, 3, 4, these screw holes, we're going to go ahead and cover up with these guys right here. So just going to go ahead, peel one off. Okay, have it off right there. And we're just going to place right over the hole. See that right there? Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do the others real quick. All right, so that's pretty awesome that they include it just in case so that you don't strip your board or anything along those lines, ruining any potential traces. Okay, and now we're gonna go ahead and put on the back plate. Now you'll notice there's a little cutout right over here. Then there's gonna be a cutout right here and a cutout right here. That's gonna match with this groove right here and these two holes, or these two screws I should say, right over here. So we're just gonna go ahead, drop that right in place. And you're going to want to put See how these come out just a little bit? They stand out. You're going to want to put those towards the hole or towards the holes. Okay, so then at this point, while we hold this in place, because if not, it's gonna flop around everywhere, we'll flip the board over and maybe put it on a surface. Okay, now that we have the board flat on here and we've already slid it on, we're gonna go ahead and use these other covers right over here, right over these screw holes as well, again, so that we don't sever any traces. It's pretty awesome that they include this. And now we're gonna go ahead and screw all 4 of these right into these holes. That's going to keep that back plate in place so that we're a little bit more free to move the board around. And we can screw those in just with our fingers. Okay, so we can see right over here, all 4 that we screwed in, and with the washers there as well. Helps it to fit a little more snugly in there. And now the one up always for a heated debate is the thermal paste, how to apply it and all this other stuff. I typically do it, bit of a grain of rice in the center of the CPU. That way it spreads out evenly when you put a heatsink over it and screw it down. Now, I'm not a fan, I like MX4. I'm not a fan of this packet. I'd prefer if they had like a little needle application tube type thing, but it is what it is. Okay. Now, that might be a little tiny bit too much, but it works. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and bring over the, all right, so zooming out. The way you install the cold plate onto the motherboard is actually a little bit different than any other of the Arctic units I've ever reviewed, which is kind of cool to be a little different. Now, you're going to want to have this fan right here that cools the VRMs or helps to cool the VRMs. Obviously, you're going to want that to be right in the center of the VRM. So if your VRMs are up here and up here, then you want it to be just like this. The problem is on this motherboard, the EVGA Z390 Dark, as you can see here, the VRMs are along the sides and the bottom. Okay, so the memory is just turned differently, and that's okay. So what I'm going to end up doing is installing it this way. Okay, now, regardless of the installation, the way you install these guys is you would put this little bracket here. This is what holds this down. You're gonna tie that right into here. So for example, or not tie, but screw it in. Right in here. Okay. And then the other one is going to go right down here. Now just make sure you move that cable out of the way just like I did. That way you don't have that cable being squeezed down. Okay, perfect. Now, actually, let me take this out because I did not include these screws in the list before. Okay, so you are also going to need this screw as well, not to be confused with this screw. You don't need this screw. You need this one that's completely threaded. And I'll go ahead and put that back. Now it's kind of weird because this is typically on the top pushing down, but the way they did this is completely new, so I'm kind of excited. Okay, now with the motherboard in place, we have The fans right up here and the radiator were right on top of where they would normally be inside of the case. And then we have the motherboard right over here. As I mentioned before, the VRMs on this motherboard are right over here and right over here. So I'm gonna put this right over here and I'm gonna angle the cable right under, since there is spacing, all right? And you just need to make sure that all of those screw holes line up. Let me zoom you in. The screw hole goes through right over here on all four. Now we're just gonna go ahead and use these guys to keep that in there. Now we don't want to screw them in all the way just yet, just enough to keep it in place. Now if you have a magnetic tip screwdriver, best time for that. It's great that they have this with a Phillips head. It's kind of hard to fit your fingertips right in there. Now again, you don't want to screw it in all the way just yet. Okay, now when you have all four in there, now you just start tightening one end, not all the way down yet. Now with all these three, then you can tighten the fourth all the way down and then just work your way around the CPU. All right, so now we're good. So now we're going to want to plug this in to the CPU fan header. Okay, now this is going to be different on every single motherboard, but this is my CPU fan header number 1 and this is my CPU fan header number 2. So I'm just going to grab this guy right over here, and then you'll see these two little notches here that shows you to plug it in closest towards the plastic piece over here. That keeps the plastic right in between these two notches, and it should just fall right in there. All right, pretty simple. Now let's get this inside of the case. All right, so now that we have that in place, we have the motherboard in place. Now we're just gonna go ahead and pop this up there. Now it's unfortunately not that simple. We need to screw it in. So let's come along the top and see how to take care of that real quick. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take this panel off. Now we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put some washers and screws along the sides. That way it's a little bit easier for me to actually get to. Now, most people are going to be installing this with the case on its side, but in order for me to give you a better presentation, I'm going to be doing it with the case standing up. I know a bunch of you are going to be triggered by that, but that's okay. All right, so here I have the radiator, and now I'm just gauging where I'm going to put it. If I try to push it in this way, I'm hitting the memory. So thankfully, in this case, I'm able to put it right over here. So instead of this outer line, I'm able to use this inner line, so you can see them line up here and here. All right, so now we're good. Now just finish installing the rest. I'll do that on fast forward for you guys. All right, now we just put this cover back on. And it's good to go. So let's go back to the front of the system. All right, so now the system is all the way put back together. we can see we have right over here the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 360. See the nice little branding right up here, the 3 fans, and then we have the tubing coming around over here along with the VRM cooler. We have that cable that I thought we were not going to be able to see. We have it right over here. Unfortunately though, the RAM is hidden. I have a link to all the parts, all the components used in the system down below in case you guys want to check it out. If you want to build one just like this, you can. And along the back, we can see nothing much has changed since, you know, we didn't put any additional cable through any of the grommets or anything. So it is as she looks like here. So let's go ahead and connect it. Let's see how it sounds like. All right, my friends, so let's see how this sounds. I haven't turned it on just yet, so I'm gonna flick the switch back here. All right, see that little light came on. Let's go ahead, turn her on. And I'm gonna go into the BIOS just to make sure I have CPU 1 set to max. If I don't, I'm gonna set it to max. That way the PWM controller takes care of all that for me. That's normal. Okay, so we can see right over here, I have the temperature set to 20 or at 28, 29 degrees. This again is the Core i9 9900K processor. So keeping it nice and cool, though it is incredibly loud. I'm not sure what to attribute that to. This is the first time that I've had the case downstairs. Plus also since I've disconnected, so if I stop all these fans, it's not loud there. The noise isn't coming from there. Okay, let's check advanced over here. Go into HW monitor configuration. Let's see what happens if we set these to smart. PWM. I had them set to CPU temperature. I'm going to put that to PWM to see if that makes a difference. And then also this one I'll set to PWM. Wow. Super quiet. I'm almost afraid as to see what those temperatures will be like. Now, since this machine normally is upstairs and I just installed the Sapphire Radeon Nitro 5700 XT, I don't have drivers. This is a new install of Windows. Let's see, CPU ID, HW monitor. Okay, we can see, whoops, temperatures are here for all the cores. In the 20s, actually, I don't know if you could see that. See that right over here, the temperatures are in the 20s. Now, let me go ahead and let's try Cinebench real quick. Now, the only thing installed driver-wise are the chipset and everything else for the motherboard. No video drivers, no, well, and audio, but that's it. So I have not installed any benchmarks. So I'm installing here or copying over Cinebench real quick. All right, so start it up here. Now we can see the CPU temperatures here. See that right over here. They are in the 70s. We can see the max temp over here is 78 degrees. Again, this is the Core i9 9900K. It is a monster, and I haven't really played around with it just yet, so I don't know how good or bad my settings are. This is just right out of the box, still running. Highest 81 degrees. Okay, so then here we're getting a 4,900. I don't have a previous test to compare it to, so I honestly don't remember what that should get, but just to give you an idea. Anyway, again, this is Iggy showing you guys how to install the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 360. A lot more testing to come. Iggy out. See you guys.